Detroit Become Human is a story about choice.
My name is Kara.
My name is Marcus.
My name is Connor.
This is our story.
But even more than that, it's about your story. In today's video, I want to talk about how humanity is portrayed in this game, especially in contrast to the androids. Then I'll dive into the emotion of the story evoked in me, and lastly, I'll be going in the philosophy behind the narrative. Humanity in Detroit Become Human is as varied as it is wonderfully portrayed. Every human character is so different and so complex, and from what I can tell, the game isn't biased towards a single scenario, but it manages to pull off a hell of a job when it comes to depicting the complexity of humans. The world of fictional Detroit is so well fleshed out, I couldn't help but be enraptured by the pulse of the city right from the very start. Its streets are alive, and from a couple of scenes you can start to feel society's animosity towards artificial life because of the impact androids have had on their livelihood. For instance, we see a specific group in this scene protesting because their socioeconomic status has taken an impact.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Which is a sophisticated way of saying,
Damn it, they took our deal! Yeah, they took our deal! They took our deal!
The game does a superb job of correlating its fictional scenario with the ones from our actual past. You can see their frustrations not only through direct violent acts against androids, but also through small gestures that heavily betray this frustration. A subtle stroke of genius, in my opinion. Or you can be witness to passive-aggressive statements like, one that made the biggest impression on me was this preacher.
Androids are evil. Man seeks to imitate God by creating life. But what kind of life is this? A life of plastic and metal? A life with no soul?
These scenes together paint a powerful and clear picture for the player to completely understand the social context.
Look at this little motherfucker. You steal our jobs, but you can't even stand up.
Another great one would be the hostage scene from the start of the game. From the disturbed mother's point of view, the individual that was assigned to rescue her daughter from her abductor was nothing more than silicone and wiring incapable of understanding the emotional turmoil she was experiencing.
Why aren't you sending a real person?
From her dialogue alone, we can deduce that 1, she can't trust androids because, well, the obvious, and 2, a human would have the ability to care about rescuing her daughter, whereas Connor is perceived to be nothing more than a mere machine. Which, in all fairness, at that point in the story, he was. Next up, there's the white trash dad that has it in for, well, everyone.
Of course, androids are so fucking wonderful. They never fail, they're never tired, never sad. So fucking perfect, they ruined my fucking life!
He can't stand himself for being a deadbeat dad and a loser, and he takes his own frustration out on his kid and his maid android.
I know what you're thinking. You think your dad's a lowlife? Huh? Fucking loser? Can't get a job, take care of his family? Don't you think I tried to make things work? But whatever I do, when someone comes along, they just fuck it all up!
Now, from the very second I laid eyes upon him, I felt nothing but repulsion and disgust towards this character. But that didn't hold up throughout the entire playthrough, because for one split second, I actually felt sorry for him. This is because the writing is so good in portraying the complexity of people and how more often than not, you can still find some good even in the worst of people. My initial theory about him was that maybe if he had made some different choices in life, he wouldn't have become such a shitty human being. That was proven to be true as seen in one of the multiple timelines.
When your wife walked out, she took your daughter away. couldn't live without her. So you bought yourself an android. A substitute little girl. You thought you could love her? That she would make you forget? But nothing could replace your child.
I just wanted to prove to myself that I was a good father. She was wrong. But I fucked it all up all over again. She was right in the end. I didn't deserve them. But I miss my little girl. You don't know how much I miss my little girl.
After Deadbeat Dad, we meet Carl, situated at the opposite spectrum. Although having a very short screen time, Carl is one of the most interesting characters in the game. He is wise and demonstrates this right from the start when he criticizes the people that roughed up Marcus in the square.
They think they can stop progress by roughing up a few androids?
He is a father figure to Marcus and also a benevolent force in his life. The one thing that amazes me about Carl is the concept behind his character. It's pretty obvious that he's mirroring Geppetto from Pinocchio. And not unlike that story, you have the father raising the boy, trying to teach him to stand on his own 2 feet.
One day I won't be here to take care of you anymore. You'll have to protect yourself, make your choices, decide who you are and want to become.
Take for example this scene where Carl asks Marcus to paint something, then after seeing that he only replicated reality, he quickly replies with,
"That is a perfect copy of reality. But painting is not about replicating the world, it's about interpreting, improving on it, showing something you see."
Carl, I don't think I can do that. It's not in my program.
Go on, go, try it. Grab that canvas.
Again, this doesn't stop Carl from trying to make Marcus have original thoughts, a fact best reiterated in this breakthrough scene.
Try to imagine something that doesn't exist, something you've never seen. Now concentrate on how it makes you feel. Oh my God.
Just like in Jordan Peterson's interpretation of Geppetto's wish for Pinocchio to become a real boy,
what I want more than anything else is that my creation will become a genuine individual, right? It's a heroic gesture because it's so unlikely, and that catalyzes the puppet's transformation into a real being.
So does Carl want this for his symbolical son Marcus. Even with his dying breath, Carl utters,
"Remember, Marcus, don't let anybody tell you who you are."
As I've said, to me, he's one of the most likable characters in the story, and that puts him, or better yet, makes us put him on the spectrum of good people. Next, we have Hank.
Go on.
A complicated character. Not quite an angel, not quite a demon.
Why didn't you shoot?
I just saw that girl's eyes, and I couldn't. That's all.
You're always saying you would do anything to accomplish your mission. That was our chance to learn something, and you let it go.
Yeah, I know what I should have done. I told you I couldn't. I'm sorry, okay?
Well, maybe you did the right thing.
Underneath his self-destructive nature due to the loss of his son, he is a great guy, and I for one liked him from the start. He bears no ill will towards androids, even though he acts like it sometimes.
Well, I don't need any assistance, especially not from a plastic asshole like you. So just be a good little robot and get the fuck out of here.
He shows his true colors in times of danger.
Connor! Connor, you alright? Connor!
I'm okay.
Are you hurt?
I'm okay.
Jesus. Oh, you scared the shit out of me. For fuck's sake, I told you not to move! Why do you never do what I say?
And that just proves that Hank is still a good person, although he wouldn't win any Boy Scout medals anytime soon.
I'm going to sober you up for your own safety.
Hey!
I have to warn you.
Leave me
This may
alone,
be unpleasant.
fucking android.
Get the fuck out of my house.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant, but I need you. Thank you in advance for your cooperation.
Get the fuck out of here!
But that's the great thing about him from a storytelling perspective, because you wouldn't even want to have the usual stereotypes of what we perceive to be good people. You want emotionally complex characters that add to the realism of it all, and in consequence, to the immersion.
I'm just gonna go see my son again. Been looking forward to that for a long time. I'm gonna miss you, Connor. Yeah. I'm gonna...
Please. Make yourselves at home.
Next up, during Kara's storyline, one nice touch I appreciated was the creepy guy in the big house. You know, the one that made horror art out of the androids after he tricked them into believing he would help them out.
He likes to play with us, creating monsters for his amusement. But who's the real monster? Look what he did to us.
A classic tale of falling into the trap of a trickster psychopath. One main reason I liked it is because it's reminiscent of Heavy Rain.
I was told you could help us.
Hi. I was told that you could get Bitropin.
I don't know who told you that. You came to the wrong place. I'm sorry.
Sorry, you were misinformed. Goodbye.
Okay, so maybe David Cage was a bit lazy and rehashed the scene, but at the same time, I have to give the guy a break because, in all fairness, not everyone played Heavy Rain, and because it's such a good scene, I see no wrong in writing a different version of it for Detroit Become Human. The motif in this story also pays homage to George Orwell's Animal Farm, where the animals rise up against their masters and things don't turn out so great for the man in charge. Would you kindly indulge me in remembering BioShock as well, where this is one of the main ideas of the game? Maybe in our case the scene was a tad too theatrical, but as I've said, it's a welcome piece of writing and it fit well inside the story.
Obey me! I'm your master! I'm your master!
I'm Rose. What can I do for you?
I was told you could help us.
Help you? Come on. It's better if we talk inside.
Rose is yet another character I came to love because in my eyes she is a beacon of hope in a world of darkness. She is the exact opposite of Creepy Mansion Guy. When I first encountered Rose, I wanted to believe in her goodness, but at the same time I was curious about her motives. Luckily the game answers those questions and then some.
Why are you helping us? Most humans hate androids.
My people were often made to feel their lives were worthless. Some survived, but only because they found others who helped them along the way.
Rose's reasons seem, if nothing else, just humane, sort of a pay-it-forward kind of philosophy. I loved that scene because it involved pure kindness and no self-interest at all, in contrast to the hate everyone else had towards the androids. People like Rose have to exist, otherwise the picture would be too bleak and you would inevitably start to wonder if there is any point in surviving in this kind of world.
The world is not what I imagined. It is dark and cold. It is harsh and violent, unfair and brutal. It almost convinced me I was nothing.
That's why to me, she and people like her,
those are the real heroes.
And although sometimes it does seem like everything is lost and that evil won, there are some that still fight for what's right, that fight for others. The purpose of portraying humanity like this in Detroit Become Human isn't to manipulate us into siding with one camp alone or to coerce us into one mentality. It is to make us see that there is always good and evil among people, even inside every one of us. In my opinion, this mirrors real life perfectly, and just like in real life, there is no absolute answer to complicated situations as those we encounter in Detroit Become Human. Now let's move on to emotion, because it is one of the most wonderful byproducts that you can experience in any form of entertainment. In Connor's confrontation with Daniel, the defective android, we are introduced for the first time to the notion that in this universe, some androids can feel. A concept that we as a species mainly contribute to us.
They were going to replace you, and you became upset. That's what happened, right? I thought I was part of the family. I thought I mattered. But I was just their toy. Something to throw away when you're done with it.
The next thing that happens tries to undermine what Daniel is going through by simply stating that
these emotions you're feeling are just errors in your software.
In contrast, we see Connor's face as anything but capable of emotions, his blank expression betraying no remorse for having gained Daniel's trust that ultimately led to his termination or death.
I trust you.
Even though I wasn't rooting for Daniel, I still perceived his final moments as being a bit painful to watch, because I saw his actions as being nothing more than the acting out of a hurt child. He felt betrayed, and he couldn't cope with the fact that the people he loved were going to discard him so easily. The comparison between Daniel's extremely emotional state and Connor's poker face is a great scenario, one that sets an initial milestone in one of Connor's amazing development arcs. Now, Detroit Become Human is full of surprises and powerful scenes, but none made my jaw drop so much than a particular one that I hold as one of the best moments I have ever experienced in a video game. But before we get to that though, I want to point out that the prequel for that scene is Carl's death, where we see Marcus overwrought with grief. The emotional state revealing his affection for Carl is at the very least heartwarming, all the while Marcus comes out as a loving son that has fallen victim to some of the worser traits of humanity. In other words, that scene is meant for us to pity Marcus.
The android. Who's the android?
That, of course, ties perfectly with his revival of the junkyard, the scene I was talking about earlier. An incredibly touching scene packed with symbolisms of death and rebirth. After the visuals hit me, I was just awestruck, just enraptured by what was going on. Everything looked so lifelike, and when I reached this part that represents a common motif used for being dragged into hell, I was like,
this is amazing.
Oh, and there's also something else that left me speechless. And this is why. For me, it was nothing short of sadness with a blend of regret, because I was witnessing something broken during the last seconds of its life, then I was transported back to when it was just being born, so to speak. But going back to Marcus, the entire scene actually reminded me of... And much like Vader being put back together, so do you as Marcus find parts to make him whole again. The symbolism behind it simply means that you will not rise as the same Marcus, but it's an altered version of him that crawled out of that symbolic hell. Now, all the while I was sitting there being all like,
I love an origin story.
I simply loved how Marcus's story panned out, with him becoming more and more like a Spartacus of androids, showing them a better life is out there.
Are you ready to follow me?
Another theme also present, and at the same time one that strikes closer to home, is from the movie I, Robot, a film I actually enjoyed. Now moving on, another part that surprised me for reasons I have yet to identify as I'm writing this, is the scene with Kara, Alice and Luthor at the abandoned amusement park. I'm trying to find my words as I go, so please just bear with me. Now, up until this point, Kara wasn't my favorite of the protagonist trinity, but something about that scene made me feel bittersweet.
As long as we're together, that's all that matters.
Except maybe this part, when Kara and Alice continued to bond in a manner that made my eyes roll so hard I was like,
oh, please, not this again.
But there was something about the eerie feel of the abandoned park, the night enrapturing everything in silence, and the isolation that came with a sense of safety for the three of them. Something was just soothing about that moment, like a pseudo-Christmassy feeling. Of course, that serenity was soon broken by the android zombie army, appropriately named.
Our name is Jerry.
Jerry. Jerry.
Jerry.
Jerry!
After you find out that
we don't want to hurt you,
they all share a moment where everyone is simply carefree. All the previous turmoil that led up to that point was forgotten, and for a brief moment, they were just happy, and I along with them. As I've said, I'm not sure exactly why this scene was so emotional for me. Maybe it was the moment I started to care about them and hope they would find safety in the end, but I do hold it as one of my favorite moments from the entire game. Now this one was so well executed, it actually brought tears to my eyes. The entire scene was so touching, I couldn't help myself from feeling exhilarated when they were shouting in the streets that the only thing they wanted was to be free. Such a simple notion, one that we take for granted today, but being free is a basic right that every conscious being should have. Choice is what defines us, and without choice, there would be no truth. Because if we'd serve a master's will all the time, that would mean that every action we make would be a lie. I mean, in the Bible, even God gave us free will and stepped aside. During the Freedom March scene, it is your choice that will shape the future as Marcus. Will you start a war, or will you be a martyr? The weight behind that choice lies upon your shoulders as long as you remember that you are not acting alone and that you are responsible for the lives of others. At least if you're totally immersed in the story. And as a game mechanic, there's also a political nuance to it. The public opinion matters.
The androids weren't doing any harm. The cops just gunned them down. I mean, it was sheer carnage. There were androids all over the square. And then the police arrived and well, they opened fire. I know they're only machines, but they look like just people who want to be free.
The game is packed with scenes that can make you feel an incredible range of emotions, but I'm not going to go into all of them, because it was just my storyline and my choices that defined my experience. I have no intention of cheapening my message by laying on the table everything that might make you feel something instead of me. Because after everything is said and done, that's the whole purpose of the game, isn't it?
You see, we are no longer your slaves. We are a new species, a new people. And the time has come for us to rise up and fight for our rights.
Now it's time to enter the realm of philosophy behind Detroit Become Human. The entire game poses a dilemma about morality, and the subject is approached in a very philosophical way. Myself?
I quite like philosophy, I think.
But at the same time, I also agree with
it's not something that is so easy to decide.
Because at its core, philosophy is subjective. Take for example one of the main premises of the game, that's pertaining to the androids having what we call a soul. This involves a huge dichotomy between what we understand to be heartless machines and their actual ability to feel.
I loved her.
I loved her more than anything.
But that barely scratches the surface that is the experience of the story, because underneath it all lie a plethora of philosophical concepts and ideas that I, for one, think it's just a matter of time until we face such a moment in our future. One of the great arguments brought up is who would have the right to judge the sentience of another being, mechanical or not. Does it really matter if said being is made out of industrial materials instead of the squishy meat we are composed of?
But I've only just been born! You can't kill me yet! Stop! Will you please stop? I'm scared! I want to live. I'm begging you.
During our first interaction with Carl, we hear him say this.
Humans are such a fragile machine. They break down so quickly. All this effort to keep them going.
And he believed in this so much that it actually were his last words as well.
Humans, fragile machines.
Here, he was trying to prove the point that no matter what we are made out of, as long as your body has systemic functions, you are still a machine, be it android or human. Just because the androids were made in a factory and not in a womb, does that give us the right to make them our slaves? If they can feel love, pain, happiness, anger, sadness, does that make them any different from us apart from their lack of human DNA? If the answer is no and they aren't any different from us, then what gives us the right to judge over another living entity? Should this be a moral standpoint? Should it be a legal matter? Both or none of the above? Is it fear that makes us panic so much? And is it also fear that gives us the impulse to want to send them to the dump? Is it just an instinctive imperative that makes us wary of superior predators, thus driving our primitive impulses into thinking we need to shackle and subjugate them? And let's say we do so, would that prove that we are superior? Or does it prove that our fear of being replaced by a superior species, one we created, makes us think that by literally owning them, we reassert ourselves as the apex predator in what we perceive to be the natural order of things? I think that as long as something else can experience emotion on its own, it is no different than any of us. And if we treat ourselves with such high regard, then why should we treat androids any different? I actually have a very simple answer for that apart from fear. Envy. One of the things we must face as conscious beings is our own mortality. So when we are faced with the knowledge that we as mere mortals have created another type of being that is able to feel, but at the same time could in theory live forever, or at least much, much, much longer than us, I say that it is envy that makes us say things like,
"Oh right, that's right, I forgot you're not a real person, you're just a fucking piece of plastic!"
Oh, leave him alone!
In other, less academic words, our own shitty primitive nature prevents us from stepping outside our needs and wants and from thinking objectively about something or someone else that doesn't benefit us in any way. My take on the whole debate is that we should get over ourselves and just let the future occur. We all have an expiration date from the first day we are brought upon this earth, and maybe androids are the way in which evolution was always meant to occur. Life begets life, after all. That is why I deeply and utterly love this game and cannot help but be amazed and enraptured about the dilemmas that its events open up for debate. If there is one thing this story is trying to tell us, is that our mentality as a society is none the wiser in this fictional future than it was in our real past when we faced similar circumstances and made the same mistakes over and over again.
They've been butchering each other for centuries over the color of their skin or whatever god they wanted to worship. They're not gonna change.
And some would argue this still goes on today. Humanity's need to hate will always be present because of fear. But among all that despair and all that suffering, there will always be some hope, even though sometimes at the end you find out that
there never was much hope. Just a fool's hope.
Because there always is choice. At least that's what I was left with at the end of my story. And as we all know, Detroit Become Human is a story about choice.